Chapter 1 of Craving the Alien Vampire by Ro Singh. Maya. Fuck you, I spat at my captors. The insect-like aliens were trying to drag a practically unconscious woman out of our cage. Leave her alone, she can barely stand, I said. Despite my hunger and fatigue, I squared my shoulders and faced the two insect men. The shorter one sparked his cattle prod thing, emitting a low buzz. I flinched, remembering the pain of the cattle prod from when I was first thrown in the cage 2 weeks ago. She's a feisty one, the trigger-happy insect man commented to the tall insect man. He grinned, or what looked like a grin with his mandibles. She'll get us a good price at the auction. Ignoring me, they moved to grab the other woman again. I stepped between them, stopping them. The other, tall insect man, snarled. Step aside, female. No, leave her alone. Bring us food and water, I demanded. I clasped my hands together to keep them from shaking. They hadn't brought food or water for any of us in days, something needed to be done. Since none of the other women would say anything, or even talk to me, I had to do something. Without warning, the trigger-happy insect man backhanded me, throwing me back against the wall. My head banged against the rough concrete and I fell to the ground, cheek aching. My whole body ached. Gingerly, I prodded the back of my head. Ouch. My hand came back bloody. The concrete was cold against my back. The damp, gross smell of the cell filled my senses. The insect man loomed over me. You don't make demands, female, he snarled. He smelled like rotting flesh. He kicked me in the gut, sharp claws digging into the soft flesh of my stomach. Oof. All the air left my lungs. He kicked me again. And a third time for good measure. Enough, the tall one finally cut in. Despite my pain, I stared defiantly up at the insect man who hurt me. He set his venomous, beady black eyes on me. You have no power, remember that. We'll be coming for you next. The two of them left, leaving the other woman too. I groaned, checking my injuries. One day I had been on Earth with my boyfriend, Samuel, at his family lake house, the next I had been abducted by these insectmen and thrown into a cage. I would do anything to be back at the lake, staring out at the sunset instead of metal bars. Ignoring my pain, I pulled myself over to the woman. Are you all right? She let out a low moan. Her species needs sunlight to survive, another woman said in a low drawl from the cage across the hall from us. She had blue skin with tentacles that grew from her head like Medusa. It was the first time any of the other women had spoken to me. From snippets of conversation, I'd gathered that they didn't recognize my species, so they were wary of me. There's nothing you can do for her, Medusa said with a sigh. She spoke to me again. I pulled myself to sit up against the wall. Do you know what he meant about an auction? I asked, hopeful I could finally get some answers. She eyed me and scoffed. You know what he meant. No, I don't. I shook my head but stopped when the small movement sent shooting pain from the back of my head. Before now, I didn't know there was life beyond my planet. All I know is that I'm really far from home. Medusa frowned. You're not part of the Intergalactic Alliance? The what? I furrowed my brow. What was she talking about? The other women gave each other uneasy glances, which didn't bode well for me. I gulped. She cleared her throat. We're being auctioned to the highest bidder. We were all sold or stolen. Some males want to fuck you, some want to claim you, some want to eat you. My stomach dropped, skin crawling. Eat? I stuttered. She was joking, right? Medusa shrugged her dainty shoulders. Literally. Or drink your blood, there's some species that do that. You know, there's this one species that has these fangs, and she went on, but my thoughts went off a mile a minute. Oh, God. Maybe I'd be bought by a good guy, someone who wanted me to be a maid or babysitter or something. But it wasn't like I ever had good luck. My boyfriend, well, ex-boyfriend now, sold me out to aliens for technology for his company. I always fell for the wrong guy. I focused back on Medusa's voice. Your best chance is to get a male that doesn't hurt you. The type of males that come here aren't good males. Right. I bit down on my lip. So there's nothing I can do? Try and escape once you have your new owner. She waved a hand. That's what I did, but it landed me back here anyways. The clicking of mandibles sounded, the insect men were coming back. I forced myself to get to my feet, gritting my teeth through the pain. Without comment, they grabbed my upper arms and dragged me out of the cell. They left me in a room with two older women. In a blur, I was hosed down, redressed, and beautified into looking appealing. They didn't treat any of my wounds, just covered them up. I stayed silent through it all, disconnected from my body. The two lizard men came back and dragged me down a hallway. The auctioneer's voice rang out through the hall. And the flickbun female is sold to the Wefern male in the back row for a whopping 500,000 credits. Highest auction this month. Applause thundered. I blinked, the loud noise finally pulling me back to the present. I struggled against the insectmen's hold, but they held firm. Without warning, they shoved me through the door. I stumbled, almost twisting my ankle in the high heels the ladies had put me in. At the last second, I managed to right myself. Suddenly, I was on stage with bright lights glaring into my eyes. I raised a hand to shield my eyes, seeing spots. Glancing down at my body, I realized I'd been dressed in a small metal bikini. At least fabric flowed down from my breasts, like a tankini. This was so weird. I moved one hand to cover my breasts, the other to my stomach. I stood there, staring out at the sea of alien men, like a deer in the headlights. At least deer could run, I was stuck here. Next up, we have an exotic female from the far reaches of the galaxy. One of a kind. The auctioneer's voice boomed as he addressed the crowd. Move forward, spin for us. The auctioneer told me, voice playful. Sending the auctioneer a venomous look of my own, I stubbornly crossed my arms and raised my chin, gazing out at the crowd of unfamiliar creatures of all shapes and sizes. Not creatures, people. Aliens. The auctioneer ignored me and gave the crowd a dazzling smile. The bidding begins at 10,000 credits. Within minutes, the number was up to 100,000. I forced myself to stand tall, analyzing my potential owners. I scanned the crowd, but I kept coming back to the same man. His presence was magnetic, but he hadn't bid for me once. A slug-like alien kept upping the ante, bidding for me every other time. A group of women surrounded him, collared and scantily clad. Ugh. My price went up to 500,000. The slug-like alien raised his hand. 1 million credits. The crowd went silent. My knees buckled. 1 million? No, who would outbid that? A lone hand lifted in the air, fingers tipped with razor-sharp claws. I followed his hand, down his arm, to his face. The man I couldn't stop staring at. His gaze met mine, red eyes blazing. His eyes mesmerized me, the red of his iris so dark that they almost appeared black. But it was his sinful voice that truly captivated me. With a seductive smirk on his blood-red lips, he made his bid. 5 million credits. End of the chapter. Don't want to wait to listen to more? The whole entire book is available for you to binge right now on Patreon linked below.